In 1863, the Westcott plantation lay like a wound across the Louisiana landscape. Cotton running to the horizon under a punishing sun. The war roared somewhere beyond, but time on the plantation obeyed different clocks, measured in lashes, steps, and swallowed words. Josiah Brant thrived in that silence. He didn't own the land, he owned the terror. Orphaned in the Appalachian backwoods, he drifted south seeking dominion, not livelihood. By 30, he was a notorious overseer brutality, not as means but as sport. He wielded a custom whip braided with copper wire, said to be salted between uses. Its crack did not echo. It sang a thin, hateful note no one forgot. Rumor had it he named the lash. No one asked the name. Westcott's aging owner, Reginald Westcott, ignored the rot. Brant brought yields. In private, even Westcott admitted something was broken behind the man's eyes. Brant didn't drink or gamble or chase. He watched, he waited, he inflicted. The enslaved sustained themselves with a code of endurance glances. Scraps of song, a language Brant couldn't hear. Hope had become brittle till a newcomer arrived that February. They called him Elijah, worked with a calm exactness and carried himself like a man who had once stood free. Circular scars marked his neck and palms, as if made by heated rings. No one knew his past. Brant took interest, tried to break him with public blows, hunger, isolation. Elijah did not break. One day, after a strike, he met Brant's eyes and murmured, "The earth takes back what's been stolen." Something shifted. 12 men began to gather without words. A field hand, a cook, one barely 13. Symbols appeared scratched into bark, cloth, and stones, quiet repetitions of spirals and crosses borrowed from far places. Whether Brant ignored the signs or never understood them, no one knew. Then the animals changed. Dogs would not cross the courtyard. Birds deserted the cane. At night, the wind seemed to hold its breath. One evening, Brant walked into the quarters alone. Reasons differ. A phantom runaway. A sound only he heard. He never returned. The fields went still for 12 nights. Disappearance is not always a vanishing. Sometimes it's a slow swallowing, like a stone sinking through mud. The moon rose the night Brant was taken. Old women called such moons thin places where the living should keep quiet. By morning, March 13th, 1863, he was gone. No blood. Boots untouched outside his door. The whip missing. Miss Reba, an elder with a second sight, said what others wouldn't. He ain't been taken. He's been claimed. Overseers stormed the quarters at gunpoint. No one spoke. Behind 12 pairs of eyes there was a strange stillness, not terror, but what follows it. Their behavior changed. The 12 stopped speaking altogether. They began crafting objects in secret carved stones, knotted twine, figures scratched into earth. Each symbol was burned or buried before dawn. The designs matched in the far future what Miriam would stand upon. Then one by one they died. By their own intent. Sarah the cook sat upright by the hearth, eyes open, hands folded. Isaac the stable boy collapsed in the rows with a bitter scent on his breath. Hidden cache of foxglove and oleander later turned up, carefully portioned. By the 13th night, all 12 were gone. Doctor called it collective poisoning. Westcott ordered fumigation, and the yard razed. What he didn't enter in any ledger, he did confess in a private letter later found by his granddaughter, was this. Under the quarter floor, workers uncovered a square cavity, deep and timbered. By hand, the interior bore claw marks. Fragments of nail, tufts of black hair, and a single wire like a copper lash tip were jammed into the splinters. No body round the pit sat a ring of 12 stones, each cut and marked African lines braided, with strange Christian symbols. They had not been dropped there. They had been placed. Westcott ordered the void filled and the boards sealed with pitch. He told no one and fled north within a year, dying in seclusion. Afterward, locals avoided the land. On one exact patch, crops failed. Children who trespassed came home wordless. Surveyors' compasses spun, their tools rusted in a night. Animals tunneled everywhere but there, birds veered wide. Sometimes people said you could hear it, a faint, steady scratching, as if something below kept working at the soil. Justice does not always arrive signed and stamped. Sometimes it has calluses and a midnight hush. What happened to Josiah Brandt passed through memory as a whisper, told when the fire burned low and the wind leaned west.
Oh.
The truth was never meant for ink. Yet fragments, oral histories, ritual pieces, dream notes suggested a purpose beyond execution. The 12 did not act out of frenzy. They enacted a binding. On the chosen night, the air held stormless heat. No owls called, no frogs sang. They lured Brandt below, struck him not to kill, bound him with cords stained in oxblood, gagged. With strips of his own shirt, pit was 6 feet deep, stone-lined, its base softened with ash and moss. At 12 points, talismans were set, each touched with the binder's blood. They lowered him in. They circled once, silent. Words had already been written, burned, and dropped to the dark. Then they buried him not with shovels, but with their hands. Hours passed in a quiet rhythm, as earth covered him. His muffled screams did not rise. They sank, drawn downward. Each man spat once into the soil, turned away, and sat in a wide ring until dawn. At sunrise, they went back to work. In the days after, the 12 changed. Few hummed a tune no one knew. One carved spirals into his forearm. Another traced signs in flour across the kitchen hearth. None smiled. None cried. And then they died methodically. Some scholars, much later, argued the rite pinned something inhuman inside a human shell to keep it from roaming free in death. The aim wasn't vengeance, it was containment. The whip didn't surface again. Until 1923, when drought shrank the ground, a child found a leather handle with oxidized copper peeking from the dirt near the ruin of the quarters. His palms blistered instantly. That night a fever took him, and he whispered in an unknown tongue. His grandmother reburied the handle under a stone carved with 12 notches. She told no one where years passed. Then came Miriam Lane, as Miriam mapped the site. She recognized the same symbols in obscure, seldom circulated texts, hybrids of West African cosmology, early Christian exorcism, and folk practices guarded in enslaved communities. The designs implied a seal that worked only if the subject remained aware. Some graves should never be opened. Some were never fully closed. One final journal line reframed everything. If the 13th night breaks the seal, let no soul be near to hear him rise. Before dawn, Miriam returned, alone. The ground where the quarters had stood felt dense and wet against the skin, like a damp cloth. Animals skirted it, or instruments glitched at its edge. Old men in town, keepers of grandmother's stories, cautioned her away without explaining. They didn't need to. Using old maps and remaining stones, she marked the center point and ran the radar. The screen revealed subtle anomalies, rectangles, depressions, patterns that didn't belong. At the exact center, the scan showed a hollow roughly 7 feet down, edged by harder material, stone, maybe wood. Soil samples nearby tested rich in copper and hematin, a blood derivative. No bones, but buried above the void lay a narrow cylinder. Wrapped in rotting fabric, the whip. She didn't touch it. She photographed and logged coordinates, then drove back to her rented place to process data. That evening, she posted a password-protected video to a private Channel 1 image. The half-exposed whip inside a ring of 12 stones. 12 stones. 12 notches. 12 deaths. Then Miriam went quiet. Messages piled up unanswered. Subscribers argued, was she threatened? Did she find what she shouldn't? A few claimed they'd saved the video before it vanished, but every copy failed too. Play. The file's timestamp read 13 hours, 13 minutes, and 13 seconds. A week later, a ranger noted fresh disturbance at the site. The soil over the quarters had caved in, a shallow sinkhole with claw-like scoring along its lip. No tracks, no scat, no vandal's trash. Just a bowl of fine ash and a clean ring of salt poured with ritual precision. Miriam Lane was never found. Months afterward, hikers deep in the woods came upon a weathered stone slab. No words, only a single carved sign, the same as one in Miriam's notes. Beneath, wrapped in oilcloth less than a foot down, lay a cracked camera lens. Nothing else. The tale of Josiah Brandt rarely appears on maps. The Westcott grounds are unmarked. Locals don't volunteer directions. Yet on certain nights, when the moon bleeds, the field's red. Some swear they hear it. Not wind, but a pattern from beneath, a scrape, a breath. A voice worn ragged by soil trying to speak through dirt. Justice here did not come from a court. It came from hands that had been forced to learn patience, from a circle of stones. From a 13th night the ground has not forgotten.